So the whole point is like, yes, they're in Arkham Asylum, and yes, that's a terrible place to be, but as long as you look at life through these colors and you see the color in the picture, then it's still bright.
This persona almost gave him the ability to have a different outlook on life, caused him to do a lot of rash, bad things, but he freed himself, okay?
The point of the Joker is that, yet Batman is complex emotionally, and I don't think the Joker is as much.
One thing he's not is dumb and not strategic.
Right. We've been talking about this for about 50 minutes. Can you guys tell that this is Joe's tism?
Yeah.
Tism?
It's your tism.
Welcome back to the wacky, wonderful Wiseworks podcast, all you guys, gals, geeks, and goofballs. Every Friday at noon, we are streaming live.
Nice.
Every Friday. Now, I got a recent comment on the video, basically. Well, it actually wasn't us. You know how podcasts are doing teasers for a minute, 3 minutes before the episode starts, just to get people committed to the conversation before the slow-moving conversation starts, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They do this a lot on YouTube. I wouldn't say they're doing this on audio platforms, but on video podcasts. Someone left a comment on a podcast that I saw that said, "Stop showing us a recap of what we're about to watch." And I was like, I kind of agree with you, but I feel like the nature of audiences has forced people into this scenario, right?
No,
Yeah.
you need this for YouTube viewers to be like, oh, this is catchy, cool. Let me hear about this one thing that they're talking about James Bond being gay.
Right. Yeah, but there's also the element of like, so people want to make sure. So the first thing you're doing when you're clicking on a video is, even if you don't realize it, but you're doing it, is this video going to deliver on the promise in the thumbnail and title, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in a podcast, sometimes you are not delivering on that promise until 40 minutes in. And that's across the board. That's not just with us. That's every podcast. So what you need to do is to, in the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes, showcase the parts of the podcast that you see is going to deliver on what you clicked in the video for. And then you can decide if you're going to stick around for the whole conversation, or you could go to video chapters. There's a whole bunch of elements, but it's kind of like there's this YouTube video podcast culture that some people don't fully understand, but it's for you. Right? We do it. It's for the audience. I guess, you know.
Well, I've been keeping up with this podcast recently, where they'll do that. It'll be super quick. It won't be very long. Like just a few seconds of preview, and then often the stuff that they say in that few seconds will pop up close to the very beginning of the podcast.
How do you mean pop up?
Like the conversation that they're having, like somebody in the preview, somebody will be like, "They took my gun," and then you get 5 minutes into the podcast and you hear that sound bite in their conversation.
Right. And that's the goal, is you just want to let people know, hey, we know you clicked on this video, this thumbnail and title, and so we're proving to you that in the next 30 minutes, in the next 2 hours, of whatever length this podcast is, you are going to hear what it is you clicked on the video for, or the podcast for. So I think that's the main goal, is to like prove that you're doing good on the promise in the marketing. And
now I think it would be smart of YouTube to have a thing where, as you're scrolling through videos, you know how they sometimes sort of autoplay.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll do an autoplay that's like a recap of different moments in the videos very quickly. If they just had a little button as you're scrolling through on the side that you click and it just gives you a little soundbite from the video.
I think, well,
that could be that instead of doing a whole intro, you could just click that and hear like that bit where it's like, "Oh, they took my gun."
Well, audio podcast platforms do that. So I know I'm pretty sure Google does that. I don't know. Basically, so whenever I upload a podcast, I believe to Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Spotify or no, it's Patreon. So Patreon does that. So you could get a sample of the content before you
Mm.
pay for it, right? So that's the idea. So yeah, there's a level of that I think would be helpful to just be like, let me get a feel before I give the view, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Before I click into the video, let me see, like, let me hear these people's voices. Let's hear the conversation flow. Let's see if this is my thing before I click into the video and leave in 5 seconds because I'm annoyed with them or it's not
Well,
my thing.
I know, like, if you get sent a Spotify link to, like, a song,
Uh-huh.
you can you can hit, the video instead of the link, and it'll play a portion of the song or a portion of whatever has been sent to you.
Right. I think that's probably smart, and I would not put it past them for inside the YouTube podcast world because
Mm.
they've been expanding it out for the
Mm-hmm.
past 3 years. They've been
Yeah.
really fleshing it out. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes into play. There's already the element, which this is another issue. Have you guys noticed this? When you go to the YouTube homepage, you can like kind of categorize what you want the YouTube homepage to recommend you at the top on mobile.
I haven't looked at that.
No.
So, so let me pull it up and see if I can direct it a little bit easier. So if you go to your homepage on mobile, there's
Mm-hmm.
this little list at the top right here.
Yeah, I knew that. I just
And
Oh,
didn't
yeah, so, like,
customize it.
gaming, film criticisms, monsters, media theories, history, music,
exactly.
Jurassic Park,
Most of the time,
storytelling, mixes, filmmaking,
exactly. And
superheroes,
it's based
ghosts.
on what you usually watch. So like one of the first things that it recommends me is cuz everything is recommended to you a lot based on your watch history, okay? Not
Yeah.
even necessarily who you're subscribed to. More
Yeah.
so watch history. So I a lot of times just go and select podcast. The problem with this is that they do not always categorize podcasts correctly. Okay. And a
Mhm.
part of that is because users, to try to get inside the podcast algorithm, in addition to their videos, they will upload like a 10-minute video where they might be doing commentary on something, call it a podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On YouTube. And then all of a sudden, YouTube thinks it's a podcast. That's a whole issue because a lot of people are categorizing things on YouTube as a podcast just because
Yeah.
they're talking in the video, but it's not a podcast. Yeah,
I
Well, what do you define as a podcast then?
a podcast is a conversation. It could be
Okay.
or a flow of conversation. Of if it's one person, it could still be a podcast. So like Tim Dillon does a podcast, but he's commenting on the news or giving his own thoughts, but it's at the rate
Yeah.
of conversation. I think the rate of conversation is a very important tool there. If you're heavily edited, if you got background music, if you're doing all this stuff to it, it's now a video, right?
Mhm.
And in my mind, podcast is like at least 20 minutes or longer, you know?
Right.
If you're doing a 15-minute video and calling it a podcast, that's a cop out. That's not a podcast.
Yeah. I think it's pretty telling, though, what comes up on my home screen. It's like it's gaming, film criticisms, monsters, history, Jurassic Park,
You like monsters.
stories.
Monster flicks. I feel
Yeah.
like we've been talking about monsters a lot lately, and that's probably why it's
Yeah.
coming up.
Well,
Well, you guys are.
I've been looking for good monster stories to listen
Yeah.
to. I've been really into it recently.
You've
Uh
always been into monsters. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
but I'm
You got a
so
fresh kick?
as far as reading goes, I typically go for something more along the lines of high fantasy or science fiction, like high concept sci-fi.
Mhm.
And there has been in the past times where I've read books that are monster related, and that sort of that feeling of thrill and fear
Just
and
reading words?
Mhm.
the way that monster books present people, they'll often present like a main character, like several main characters up front,
Mhm.
and then like instantly kill off one of those main characters that you got to know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they'll introduce a new main character.
Just
And
to
it's
just to keep you rattled?
just to keep you on your toes. It's wild.
Well, that yeah, and so you're looking for do you listen or do you read physically? Mostly both.
It's mostly listening.
Yeah, because you're doing it while you work, right?
But yeah, but reading is reading them is a similar thing.
Right. I'll say this. I I think listening I have a weird I have this weird so I can pay attention to conversations,
Mm.
but as soon as something feels like it's planned, whether it's a lecture or a sermon or an
Mhm.
audiobook, my brain freaking turns off, dude.
Yeah.
My verbal recollection just turns off.
Mm.
Like instantly I'm spacing. You know how when you're reading, you'll read words but not comprehend, and so you'll get through 4 pages. If you're
Yeah.
not feeling something, I
Yeah.
could be feeling it, and my brain
And
still
it
turns
just
off.
turns it off.
Well, I'll sometimes I don't ever get to the point where I've read 4 pages and I have
It
to turn
happens
it
to me
off.
every time I read.
I'll get through a couple sentences and not have comprehended those sentences and have to go back and read them.
See, that's the thing. I will never either listen to a full book or read physically a full book if I am constantly going back and rereading or
Mhm.
re-listening to what I
Yeah,
didn't
I
comprehend. Because
if you're not
I never not turn that's why I like podcasts and that's why I'm passionate about it because that's like I don't know if it's just the person's free flowing ideas or
Mhm.
something,
Yeah.
but I can pay attention and comprehend those. But once it's a planned thing,
Ah,
it like my brain turns off.
you
I don't
didn't
know
get
why.
you didn't
You
get
think
enough
this
reading comprehension teaching in school.
Yeah, this seems like maybe you just haven't practiced it enough.
I will say that
I've practiced now.
there are some books that it's really hard to keep up with. I've been trying to listen to this book called Blood Meridian.
Mhm.
Oh boy. Uh I am having so much trouble understanding what's going on that I feel like I need to go back and re-listen to the book. And I'm already several hours in
Mm.
and I have no idea what's happening.
Well, I don't think it's a reading comprehension issue for me.
Mm.
I think it I think it's what your brain prioritizes, right?
Mhm.
Because and this is why I like films and for some reason podcasting. I think podcasting usually happens whether it's one person talking to you in a way they would have a conversation with you or two people having a conversation with you. I am really good at conversations. I'm really good at
Mhm.
communicating with people. Fairly good anyway. It's what I value in my brain. And then the other part of it is how am I getting a visual story being told? You know, how am I
Right.
Yeah.
communicating something visually? So all of a sudden YouTube videos that have B-roll or films that are like tactile and visual, I comprehend it all. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think
And
it's so much
movies
like
movies can have that issue too. I think one of the big reasons that the third Fantastic Beasts didn't work for me is because there was a lot of stuff where it was like, why is this happening?
well
Yeah.
that just
Well, it's
comes
Why
down
and
to they
how?
didn't tell a good visual story
yeah,
Well,
it was
because you're
you
not
have
confusing.
comprehending
and
it.
because it's the same thing in a book. If you're not describing things in a manner that people can comprehend or
Mm.
understand why something is happening when it's happening, I think it's also a big reason why Tenet didn't work for a lot of people is because you had to really pay attention to why something was happening and when, and it wasn't as easily uh, uh, displayed to people.
But I enjoy that. Like I thrive in that environment. If a film requires me to perk up and pay attention,
Mm.
I got it. You know what I mean?
I mean, it it's not good storytelling, I feel. If you it this is hard to say cuz I have an opinion on this. I think
Is it because
yes, it's
it's hard to
interesting
say?
if you have to pay attention, but it's not good storytelling if there's not an element of something that you can comprehend, even if it's not the bigger picture of what they're trying to tell.
Mhm.
That small little bit is not good storytelling, because you have to catch the person with that small little thing for them to enjoy it and then get into the story.
If you have to, if you have you don't necessarily have to understand, like you're saying, the big picture of what's going on. You just have to be able to understand what's going on in the moment. And if
Yes.
you can't, and that was the issue for me with Fantastic Beasts. It's like
Yes.
they were doing things in these moments that I had no idea why they were doing them. A
Yeah,
big
but that's
a
that.
big one was like the ballroom scene with where they're just going in and attacking and fighting for no reason. Like we have
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had no idea why that was happening.
No, we know it was happening. It's because the movie prioritized it. We want a visual action spectacle of wizards
Mhm.
fighting. But that doesn't come down to the that's literally just poor storytelling. It
Mm.
comes down to that simply. That's not the same as saying, like, when I'm reading Lord of the Rings, which I have, I could get through 6 pages, realize I'm not comprehending what I'm reading, and I
Mhm.
Mhm.
missed all of, Weathertop. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's not that I'm not having a good time or I don't enjoy it or it's not well told. It's literally my brain shuts off. I'm reading words but not comprehending it.
It's a you thing.
It's a
Yeah.
me thing, but I never do that with podcasts and I never do that with films, because
Mhm.
I could pay attention to something like Fantastic Beasts and pay attention and just say, this is just not told well. The story and the editing doesn't make sense for a linear story.
Yeah.
And they're literally just making the spectacles without an actual substance
So it
yet.
happens with both reading and audiobooks for you?
Yeah, especially audiobooks. Yeah. For some, and it's weird. That's why a lot of people that have this issue find help in audiobooks. But that's what I'm saying. Like, and the thing is, I do the exact same thing for teaching, like, or sermons, like Sunday morning sermons.
Mm.
Most of my life, I have not comprehended most of the sermons I've listened to in my life, because I will hear the first 5 minutes, maybe, brain turns off. And then it's
It
over
goes
and we're
into
good.
just sort of listening mode, but not hearing
Yeah.
mode.
There's probably, I would say I've listened to comfortably thousands of sermons in my
Mm.
life. All right.
Probably.
I would say there might be, out of thousands, probably 70 strong messages that for some reason I paid attention to, was able to pay attention to, and I got. You
Did
know
you
what I
ever
mean?
take notes?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
See,
I've been through the
I
whole gamut of how to fix this problem.
I
Never
tried to
fixed.
take notes, but I lost more of the sermon trying to take notes than
Yeah,
I did
that's
just
me.
sitting and listening.
Especially
That's me.
if you have to fill out, you have to fill in the
Exactly.
blanks. It's like, I
Oh, I
missed a
don't do
blank.
fill in the blanks,
What are we
If we
doing
did a
here?
missed the
but
Yeah.
women can do it. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
Oh, you can't
Women,
generalize just women.
I'm
But
generalizing.
most women.
No,
Most
you can
the
generalize this.
the I haven't seen nearly as many men who take notes on sermons regularly as I have women. Women take notes on sermon. A lot of the women that I know in the various churches that I've been to have
Mhm.
notebooks full of sermon notes, and they're comprehensive sermon
Mhm.
notes. And I don't think I've ever seen nearly as many men with that kind of note taking
Right.
ability.
And I think so you're right. I think I don't know what motivates a lot
Mm.
of women that think that way and they take notes and they recall things. I think obviously brains are wired differently, and
Mhm.
by wired I mean like literally chemically they're different. And so when it comes down to, I think predominantly like men are really good at like a couple things or one strong thing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so in the realm of learning or social life, person to person, you kind of have this. So for example, in a podcast, some people won't be good podcasts because they cannot yes and a conversation. All they can do is
Yeah.
this person's talking. This person's talking. All right, my turn to talk. This is about me. You know what I mean? And so they can't keep a conversation going.
Right.
Yeah.
That means that person, for some reason in their brain, they do not have either exercised or a strong ability to be able to yes and a conversation. However, that person could be an awesome reader
Right.
and
Or
comprehend
note
reading.
taker.
I think for me, I don't know which one's stronger, but I think visually and conversationally, I get it.
Right.
And once you exit those, it's harder for me to comprehend. So written word, lectures, audiobooks, once you leave that, all of a sudden, like I can comprehend it, but it takes a lot of work. It takes me to listen to it really closely and probably multiple times.
That's really interesting because, you know, that maybe that's why you like DPs so much, you know, director photographers, especially
That's
when
true.
ones that why just says oh boy. You know, that's why you pulled so much maybe out of the new trailer of the Joker.
Well, yeah, so the new trailer for Joker, Folie à Deux, Joker 2,
Say that again.
is Folie à Deux.
Oh, okay, good.
It's French.
French? Oh.
I think it has something to do with madness or whatever. I don't know exactly what the translation is, but we looked it up at one point a while ago.
Isn't it
So,
like the folly of two or something?
okay, let's just look it up. Why not?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We need to get a short involved with this. We can create a short out of this. Learn peoples.
Yeah. What does folie à deux mean?
All right. What does folie à deux mean? Delusion or mental illness shared between two people in close association. That's what it means.
Gotcha.
That's what a quick Google search says. Obviously,
People have been
French.
searching that probably.
Oh yeah, Google had it ready. So for the first Joker and now Joker 2, directed by Todd Phillips, and director of photography was Lawrence Sher or Laurie Sher. Sure.
Sure.
There was a podcast that we all sampled or listened to where the director of photography, the cinematographer, was having a conversation about his work, specifically about Joker 1 and then in the approach for Joker 2 and everything. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a look at the visuals from the trailer. I'd like to, we don't have to do a deep analysis. Maybe if something sparks your interest, let's point it out. But I got a lot of visuals lined up. This is more of a visual element to the podcast, so I apologize if you listen. But we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the interesting things that the cinematographer had to say about working with Todd Phillips and kind of the relationship between the director and cinematographer on set, because I hear a lot of similar things when it comes to interviews with Greg Fraser when he works with like Denis Villeneuve or Gareth Edwards, right? And so I think let's just explore this. Let's live in this for a while. Director, cinematographer, visuals, Joker, folie à deux. You know what I'm saying?
Did you just say let's live in this for a while?
What is wrong with that?
Okay, let's live in this for a while.
Why? Are you
what's
confused?
your first element?
No, not at all.
So
I just saying it's just I've never used let's live in this for a while as a action.
I'm a conversationalist. I make a conversation fun. That's the point.
Okay, what do we got here?
So the internet's kind of blowing up because of this end shot of the trailer. You know what I mean? When this popped, everyone's like,
oh, this was cool.
Is genius cinematography.
This is pretty cool.
I peed my pants. It was so good.
I didn't pee my pants, but I thought it was cool.
There's so just to break it down, I'm not going to play the shot because I don't know what kind of copyrights they got yet. I don't want them to YouTube to take our whole podcast, but I got four. So basically this is all one shot at the end of the trailer. If you haven't seen it, and if you have, this is a recap. It looks like Harley Quinn, Lady Gaga, is looking through a glass, probably prison, and she draws, probably with lipstick, a smile on the glass. All right. And then what he does is Joaquin Phoenix moves his face into position and it's racking focus, right? So
Mhm.
when it shows the lipstick, he's out of focus. It goes back to focus on him, and the lipstick is just this red blurry thing because it's no longer in focus.
And
But
for a minute, it looked like a mustache.
for a minute, yeah. But
Mhm.
then Joaquin, they line it up perfectly, and then he smiles, and now you have this beautiful, just like
Yeah.
faded red smile that looks like the lipstick or the smile paint. So it was a very well put together episode.
Yeah, it was.
Or
Episode.
shot. But I will say the only thing as a cinematographer I'm thinking is this does break the relationship between two characters, right?
Right, because he moves into it for the sake of the camera, right?
Yes, for the sake of the
Yes.
camera. It is
Not
so far
not
off.
for the sake of her.
Not for the sake
No.
of her. Not at all. So it does for anybody that's worked with a camera or at least like messed with perspective on a camera of where the camera's placed, obviously this is like one of the first things you should notice. It's like this is a conversation between Joker and Harley, and for her to draw a smile and then him to line up and smile, they're doing it playing to the camera, not playing
Yeah,
to
because
the
she
actor.
drew it over here.
Yes.
And so he moves his face. He's here. He moves his face maybe here,
Yeah, no,
and the
she
smiles here. That it doesn't work like on that, 180.
yeah, so this is
No, yeah.
basically artistic porn. You know what I'm saying? Like this
Yeah.
is just
Yes. That's what this
for
whole movie's gonna be.
the coolness of it, which is an interesting take. Is that what this whole movie's gonna be?
Okay, yes.
I feel like for visual sake, yes.
I've talked to multiple people
So 3.
about what the first Joker movie was and did they like it, this or that. And everybody keeps saying the same thing. It was a great movie visually and artistically, but it was a terrible Joker movie. And
It was I've never heard anyone say it was
I've
a
said that
terrible
multiple
Joker
times.
I've
Not-
said that
not including
hundreds
you
of
two.
times, not multiple, hundreds of times.
Not including you two. I'm talking about
No, I literally was talking
average
to somebody
citizen.
yesterday about it, and I didn't bring it up. Someone at work said, "Hey, you do video stuff. What'd you think about the new Joker 2 trailer?" And I said, "It was cool. I really liked it." And he said, "I don't." And he said, "Because it's a terrible Joker." And I was like, "Okay, yes, I agree, but it's a good movie. Or it's
So-
cool visually."
I feel like in my conversations, I'm the one that has to tell people about how this is
Well, you don't-
more of like a psychotic clown story than it is an actual.
Well, you don't hang out with
Joker.
high caliber people.
Right.
You kind of, the people you hang out with are just kind of, shills that go through life and don't, think for themselves.
Okay, if that's what you think. There's a level of this though that I think. So let's get into this first off. The way this film looks visually. So there's 2 points in the podcast that we sampled that stands out to me when I'm thinking about the visuals here. Okay,
Mhm.
one is that Mr. Schur, the director of photography, said that if the shot becomes a issue for the actors, or if getting like a specific shot is too complex or is taking up too much time or becomes the center of the scene instead of the actors, he always abandons it. Like if they try
Yeah.
it and all of a sudden it feels like it's becoming a thing and now the placement or the specific movement of the camera or something becomes the focus of the scene instead of the actors being the focus of the scene, he said he always abandons it and does something different. The other thing with this movie specifically is he brought up how a lot of movies right now seem very dark and desaturated, and he was always valued color, right? And he did say that with this film, so like when it comes to color, first off, I'm just gonna flip through some visuals. If you guys see something, point it out because I'd love to talk about visuals. But he did talk about how color's really valuable to him.
Yes,
right?
that scene.
And And the interesting thing about this scene with the umbrellas and the rain
Mhm.
is it flips from one shot. So we know we're getting the point in the trailer. This is so much in the mind of Harley and Joker, you know?
Mhm.
Mhm.
What's going to happen? A lot of this film is going to be in their brains, okay?
Right.
Well, and the first one was that. I mean, you know,
Well,
we
it
got
was
halfway
more
through the
shade
movie and
mystery.
realized he was never in a relationship with his lady.
Yeah, but it's also that the first one was a bit more shaded in mystery, whereas this one, it's like
Yes.
the trailer's telling us this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So obviously the umbrellas are not colorful except when they cut to this shot in the trailer, right?
Right.
They're just black umbrellas. Then you switch to here and they have color, they have life, there's imaginative
And clearly clown
personality.
colors. Those
And
those
clearly, yeah.
bright pastels.
Do you
Um,
think I don't I'm just while we're breaking down this trailer, do you think that this is going to be more of a how do I say this? Because getting somewhere with my point. A disasterful movie, or this is going to be the world is bright as long as you look at it in a certain way. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
mm,
I think it's going to be kind of one of your uh asylum type movies where a lot of it takes place in the asylum.
Yeah,
Uh,
Gotham. Not Gotham. Arkham.
Arkham. Yeah. And a lot of it's taking place in their heads.
I
But
think I
But
think
I don't know if it's gonna be like disastery.
well, no, I'm saying in their head. So the whole point is like, yes, they're in Arkham Asylum, and yes, that's a terrible place to be. But as long as you look at life through these colors and you see the color in the picture, then it's still bright. You still have brightness out there because in the first movie, his life was like terrible. His mom was having problems. He lost his job. He everything bad was happening to him.
well what was the thing that how did the movie end from Joker 1? He felt vindicated or he felt like he was powerful when
Yeah,
Mhm.
he presented this new persona, right? When
Right.
this persona almost gave him the ability to have a different outlook on life, you know?
yeah.
Caused him to do a lot of rash, bad things,
This is gonna be.
but he freed himself, okay?
Mm.
So there's going to be a level of this to maybe there's an element to where he's helping Harley also free herself, you know?
Mhm.
Right.
And then they have this interesting relationship where she's kind of trapped and he's discovered he's discovered this inner world that you can live in some fashion,
Mhm.
and the world becomes a lot less scary. It becomes a lot less vulnerable, like he was experiencing in the first movie.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of taking control of your life no matter the situation. And it's also probably a level of you can have love and fun in any situation,
Mhm.
like like an asylum. So I think it's also he said in the podcast the first movie they were very insecure about because he didn't know what it was going to be on set.
Mhm.
He filmed everything. He didn't until he watched the rough cut. He was like, I don't know if this is going to be anything. There's also a level of this in a lot of articles that and in the podcast he's sharing. This is also very different from the first movie.
Yeah.
There's going to be this element uh, of well, what is it? So let me show that. So like this kind of stuff, there's like this stage musical kind of thing that's going to be happening. And most likely, this is going to be them building a world in their head or an imagination,
Yeah.
building on that idea, right? And
But also oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and that is so different from the first movie that
Mm.
they don't know how people are gonna respond. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's going to be as different from the first movie because he built a stage on his head, but there was only one stage that he built. It was the night the night what do you see? The
Late night show, yeah.
late night show with Robert De Niro. That was his stage.
But that was
And
also real,
yeah, but it was also fake. How many times did he imagine in his head that he was there and Robert De Niro asked him, like he said,
right?
he kind of imagined that he was there, and then eventually at the end of the movie he got there, and that was kind of the point of like, oh, he imagined this, but he got there. So
Mhm.
it is different, but it's also not different. He did have stages. It just was a different kind of stage. But I see what they're doing. What were you gonna say, Wyatt?
The thing I noticed with all of these shots is that when he's um, what's his name in this
Arthur.
movie?
Arthur,
Arthur
yeah.
Arthur something. Um, when he's Arthur, he's small, emaciated,
Arthur
and
Fleck.
just unhealthy looking.
Mhm.
But
Right.
when he is the Joker, he's always in like a suit, like a big in the suit makes
He's
him
standing up
look
straight.
look how full he looks in the
Yeah,
shoulders and
compared to
face
that.
compared to that. Yeah,
Right.
anytime he's presented as the Joker, he's much bigger.
He's powerful. He's freed himself. He has a new view of himself, right?
Yeah. And it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to me that we talk about this the way that they're presenting this in regards to the Joker,
Mhm.
because in that same line of thinking of like the first movie's a really great movie, but it's not a great Joker
Yeah.
story. It's weird to me that we talk about these things in regards to the Joker, who is a criminal and an
Mhm.
antagonist of the Batman,
Yeah.
right? And these movies are more like social commentary and mental health commentary.
Yeah.
And it's a weird dichotomy that almost it doesn't it doesn't feel like it fits in my head. I almost wish that these movies were about just this guy Arthur Doyle and not the Joker.
Now,
That
go
the
ahead.
I
persona
think
he creates is something
I don't
else.
know though. I think yes, I know exactly what you're saying, but I think that's kind of why people love Batman so much, and
Mm,
they've touched and resonated with Batman because all your superhero movies. Let's just put them in a category. It's like origin story, save the world. With great power comes great responsibility.
mm.
Batman is so dark and has a
Dork.
conflict and it's like his emotions of why he's doing things are a little bit different. Yes, a lot of superheroes do have
More
those emotions of why
complex.
they're doing
Yeah.
it, but it's more complex. And then you throw a character like the Joker in there, and I think we saw it more sparking when like Heath Ledger's Joker came out,
Mhm.
because it was like, okay, this is dark but also interesting.
Well,
And
I think the difference with Heath Ledger's Joker compared to this one, and the point of the Joker is that yet Batman is complex emotionally, and I don't think the Joker is as much. And that was kind of the point of Heath Ledger's Joker, is the reason he told all of these stories about how he got his scars, right? And they were all different. The point was it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Right.
It doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't.
My origin doesn't matter. I'm here because he's here, right?
Yeah. And
And
he's
it
my
Well, I
purpose.
mean,
He's
you're
my
right.
antithesis, right?
And
but
so I feel
that's what
like
they're telling here too, though. They're saying it's either in his head or it's not in his head. It doesn't really matter. It's just how he
I
perceives himself.
I think here they're adding this great level of emotional complexity to this
Yeah.
character that really I don't think needed it.
No, but I'm
I
enjoying these movies. I'm enjoying them for what they are.
Of the characters, I think it was always a little bit more. Harley Quinn was the more emotionally complex one because she was a normal person,
and we
a,
had
a
a
psychologist uh, that he made go crazy.
right,
Mhm.
and we see her origin story in the comics. We see her origin story play out. He was the one that brought her to where she becomes, whereas we have a discombobulated idea of where Joker came from. Was he like this from birth? Did he become this? However, okay, let me present an argument. In
Mhm.
a world where Heath Ledger pops off and then they come out with Jared Leto, and then they come out with Barry, that guy in the Batman version, where it's just completely gore graphic, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what are the other Jokers? Was there another one that there was
Between that,
besides
the one in Gotham, or
right?
yeah,
So
the
yeah,
Gotham.
in the Gotham series. So we're seeing these different versions of Joker, and they're all different variations. But the main idea is we want to build on or have like a new concept around Joker because Heath Ledger was such a specific palette and people liked it. So
Mhm.
like let's build on that somewhat, you know? And I think I wouldn't say Jack Nicholson started that because his was so different and such a while ago. We have so many right after Heath Ledger. I think people are obsessed with the Joker character. This abandons all of the stereotypes of what we would imagine a Joker film would be and presents a new story. And although I may not say this is a great Batman Joker, I will say it lives in a version of the world. Okay,
Mhm.
because we in the first movie we saw young Bruce Wayne in the first movie. So it stays in the world, but we are exploring something that the comics and no other story wants to explore. And I find that interesting because it creates variety. I think that's important because even if we ultimately say it's not a very strong backstory, it's not the backstory I would be interested to see with Joker, it at least is a well-told version of one, whether you
Mhm.
like it or not. And you can't really deny that it's not being told well, I
Oh,
guess.
Yeah.
the story is absolutely being told well. My issue is just that it uh, kind of contradicts what the Joker is, and
Well, it kind of contradicts some of the comics of what the Joker is and your own perception of what you want the Joker to be.
right, which is a diabolical, incredibly smart criminal, and not a insane guy. I've
Do
seen
you think
insane. I've
Jared
seen
Leto's do
I've
you think
seen insane guy stories that kind of do a similar thing as what this is doing, and it doesn't fit with the Joker in my head.
um do you think with this new self-actualizing of Arthur, right?
Mm,
This version of Arthur right here.
right.
Do you think that what we're going to see in Folie is going to actually present more of the kind of Joker that you want that you believe him to
It's
be?
absolutely possible. If this is if instead of if it ends up where it's a lot of it's in his head, but towards the end of the movie, he brings it back out into real life, and this is the type of Joker that is there in the end. This criminal, this guy.
Mhm.
I would be much more happy with that. I think that would feel like who he is.
Right. We do need to at some point abandon this idea of telling a social commentary, I guess,
Right.
of mental illness and say we have to get to what Joker is and what he's capable of
Hmm.
because one thing he's not that Joker is not is dumb and not strategic.
Right.
Mhm.
Because he basically takes insanity and throws his mastermind strategic
Mhm.
brain and mixes the two, and that's what makes him what he
And
is,
for a
right?
lot of people, he's evil Batman. You know, Batman's power is
Yeah.
his incredible mind um and his ability to kind of prepare for any situation and uh, uh think ahead. And Joker does that opposite Batman, and is why he's such a constant danger is because he's just as creative, just as inventive, and just as intelligent.
Yeah.
And this Joker doesn't present that, but if by the end of the movie you're getting more of that, where he embraces this persona and
It unlocks
him,
something.
it unlocks something in him, I would be very intrigued with that.
I think so too, and I think there's going to be an element of this in a prediction that I think he's going to be able to bring Harley Quinn as a mental
Mm.
patient, or they. I don't know. I think that they'll probably have an element of before he meets her, she's already a patient, because it seems like
Yeah.
that's what they're doing in the trailer. Before he meets her, she's a patient. She probably was a psychologist, a therapist, and then she becomes mentally ill. She's a patient, then they meet. That's probably
Yeah.
what this story is going to lead to. But it does seem like there's a version of, obviously, with like the musical nature of it, and these narratives being played out with each other in each other's head. I think there's going to be a level of this to where he's like, there's power when you reach this level with yourself, right?
But going back to kind of the um you were wanting to talk about the relationship between the director of photography and the director.
There was something interesting that Sheer said, and he said that he sees himself as a soldier on set. All right.
Mm.
So one thing that, so these, if you don't know the history, another super popular movies that Todd Phillips and Lawrence Sher did together was the Hangover series, all three
Mhm.
movies, right?
Yeah.
And he said that with Joker 1, there was an element of planning ahead a lot, but each day they realized with Joaquin Phoenix was something they had to change their plans and constantly be in this state of we're willing to be pliable in our plan, in our visual plan, in our in
Right.
how we go through the day. And he said in Joker 2, they still made plans, but they knew what to expect. And I think Joaquin Phoenix, he probably is like he's inserting so much of his own vision into characters that it
Mhm.
probably affects production a lot, right?
Well, it's probably since it seems like Joaquin knows exactly what to do with the character. It probably takes less direction for him.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think they probably just say go, and he's doing something, and then you have to adapt to what he's doing, you know?
Right.
And so he said with Joker 2, they basically were able to, uh, they came in expecting, knowing that we are going to constantly change. But there was something interesting that he said in the podcast, which was he kind of safeguards the director,
Mhm.
because he knows the director is safeguarding not only a lot of people like the director of photography, or but also the actors. Like the director is allowing Joaquin to basically take control on set in some fashion, and producers and everybody can really become an issue in that process, because you get behind, you're changing your plan, all of a sudden there's a lot of doubt in the environment, and you have to rely more on like problem solving and creativity in the moment. And he said that he values that so much with Todd Phillips, that he kind of sees himself as like a safeguard, you know, as kind of a
Yeah.
soldier for the director, to where he's willing to go with what the director says so much, he's willing to like argue and fight on his behalf with like a producer, you know? And so I thought that was interesting, because I see this camaraderie of safety, as far as creative safety, as far as just literally works. You know how at a job you got your best work buddy,
Yeah.
you got the guy that you're with, or the girl you're with all day, and you guys get to know each other. You guys have your jokes, you guys have your camaraderie, and they're like your best work friend, you know?
Mhm.
Um, to me, hearing people like Greg Fraser and Sure talk about their experience with the directors they work with, and the fact that so many DPs continuously work with directors. You got Hoyt van Hoytema working with Chris Nolan constantly. You got
Mhm.
Greg Fraser working with Denis Villeneuve and Gareth Edwards constantly, you know?
Yeah.
You have Florence Sher or Lawrence Sher working with Todd Phillips constantly. So there's this element of like work camaraderie and safety, almost like a brotherhood or whatever, or a
Mhm.
sibling relationship of going to bat for them. And there's like creative safety, because there's a lot of vulnerability when you're under pressure and needing to be creative, because
But
sometimes, you know,
there's also more easy creative manipulation. I know that when John Mark and I are brainstorming on something, whether it's
Mhm.
coming out of my mind or his mind, we sort of know each other's creative tendencies so well that we can
Creative
improv
tendencies is a good word.
Mhm. Yeah.
on the idea and work it towards something that's um, more able to visualize in your head.
Right.
You know, I witnessed this. What was this? Like 2 days ago,
Mm.
where you guys were talking about not Tim Dillon, Andrew Schultz, and you guys were talking about his stand-up special about the. It sounds bad, but the autistic
I think it's not
Andrew
him,
Schultz.
not Andrew Schultz.
You know, kids with Down
Uh,
syndrome are having a lot of fun. They're not. They're not.
that's what's his name. That's not Schultz.
You
That's
talk about Shane Gillis.
Shane
Shane
Gillis.
Gillis, yeah. And you and John Mark, well, I don't know what it was, but you guys latched onto that
Mhm.
idea, and then you guys started crafting. John Mark is just up in the living room pacing. John Mark likes to pace.
When he's
Again,
got
While he thinks.
when he's thinking and he's
Mhm.
got something in his head, he paces.
He
which is a
paces.
good
So
thing to do.
Yeah.
he's up pacing while I'm literally sitting on the couch just watching you make food while you're riffing on him, and he's pacing from living room to kitchen, and you guys are just feeding off
We
each other. And I'm like,
we're just
what's going on here?
coming up with stories that would involve uh people with Down syndrome and making an interesting story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun. I think they would be fun to work with too.
Yeah, you got Peanut Butter Falcon. They did a
Yeah.
film with him. Um, but to go back to creative tendencies, that's a great freaking word, man. Because once you get to know a creative tendency and you've seen something come to fruition and you've either learned together or you've succeeded together, there is camaraderie there. There's trust there. So when you have someone like Larry Sher, right, who pours his heart onto into his visuals, right?
Mhm.
And then you have, and being insecure about it, perhaps, especially earlier in his career, working with Todd Phillips, and then he sees what Todd does with that cinematography in the edit room, in the color grading, in the final product. All of a sudden, you're trusting that director with your work, um, and vice versa. The director on set allows you to light something or allows you to, work with the actors a little bit, because he also brought up this interesting story in the podcast where he thought Lady Gaga hated him.
Mhm.
Did you guys hear this part of the
Yeah,
podcast?
I did hear that.
And apparently someone recommended that he, instead of calling her Stephanie, he just call her like Lee or something.
Mhm.
And like a nickname, and all of a sudden her whole demeanor changed and they were like professional buddies in some fashion.
Yeah.
So but that also proves there's an element of cinematographers are also working with actors in a big way, because if the director is in the tent solving a problem, but
Yeah.
you guys are in the middle of shooting,
You got to
well, the
frame up the shot. You
cinematographer,
got to work with the actor.
you have to let the actor might know what to do performance wise,
Mm.
but you have to say, all right, there was like a moment where like your eye went behind something, and I think that's important, so let's just do it again, but try not to like move in a certain way. Try to just be cognizant of where you're sitting in for this next take, you know what I mean? So in
Yeah.
some fashion, the cinematographers, they're up close with the actors, they're doing directing of their own, you know what I mean? Working with actors. So when you see a person that can conduct themselves not only as a cinematic director, but also even as stepping into form of like director, actor director, a little bit, story directing, assisting with that, all of a sudden you find camaraderie there as well. And creative tendencies, if they work well together and you find success in them, then you kind of want to hold on to it. I mean,
Yeah.
so they've had a few very successful runs together, as well as, Christopher Nolan, Hoyt van Hoytema, as well as Greg Fraser and Denis Villeneuve, so
They can trust each other to know what they're doing.
there's an argument that I would like to build on and share your thoughts. Do you guys think you agree from everything you guys have heard or what you've observed? Do you
Yeah.
guys think a cinematographer and a director might be the closest relationship that you can have on a set?
It's if it's I think it's probably super important. If they're not working together very well, then you're probably not getting great films. The films that you hear about that don't do well, nobody's talking about the DP and the director.
Right.
But the
Nobody
ones that
is.
do so good and that people enjoy, it's both of those people are always talked about together
Yeah.
and are always in interviews together.
Well, sort of. You know, this is interesting because I'm seeing a trend where cinematographers that create good stuff are coming on like podcasts that are online that people don't really know about. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like small podcasts. And they're not getting a lot of views.
Yeah. You
Even
trying to get
Greg
Greg?
Fraser. What?
You trying to get Greg? You
Oh,
trying to get him on
100%.
here?
I'd
You've been
also like to
emailing him?
talk to Larry Sher. I for sure love to talk to him too. Which,
Mhm.
interestingly enough, let me just promote this podcast as we talk about it quite a bit. If people are interested, take a look at the Trenches Talk with Larry Sher. This is the podcast. That's the thumbnail right there. So, but look, 733 subscribers, right?
Yeah.
This is the highest viewed podcast they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's only got 4,800 views. So,
But we've been talking about this for about 50 minutes. Can you guys tell that this is Joe's tism?
Yeah. I'm checked out at this point.
Tism?
This
We
your
need to
tism.
thank the Patreon supporter. And
What are
I
you
need to go-
talking? Hold on. We
This is
can't just.
this is your tism. It is. Come on. Everybody's got one. This is yours.
Have I not been stimulating?
Oh, you absolutely have. It's been a joy to listen to.
But you're
This
telling
is
me
yours.
it sounds
This
like
is it.
it sounds like a boy
Look,
explaining trains and why
hey,
they're so cool.
for some people it's trains. some people it's math. Joe did not get the mathtism. Neither
No.
did I. Joe got the cinematography tism.
It's a good tism to have.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's a fun one.
It's a fun
love it.
tism.
Yeah.
While you guys are talking about tisms,
Josh got the let's move on tism.
well,
Joshua got-
I'm not trying to move on. You guys can talk about all the tisms you want, but I need to really quickly take a quick break myself.
All right,
Okay.
go pee. We'll do a Patreon shout out while you're gone.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. So,
Remember,
Thank you.
folks, don't drink lots of fluids before the podcast.
like right before the podcast.
Like right before the podcast. Yeah.
Kelly Hill.
Thank you,
She's-
Kelly.
We haven't updated yet. It still says Patreon.
Still says
But
Patreon.
Kelly Hill
Good job, Joe.
supports us on YouTube memberships.
And we appreciate it.
And we support it. Patreon and YouTube memberships, they're basically identical. You get the same thing. It's the same cost. But Kelly Hill is a supporter of us over there. If you also want to be a supporter of us, whether on Patreon or YouTube memberships, just go to the link in the description for Patreon. You get, or just click the button join on YouTube. You get early podcasts. You get exclusive pre-show podcast we do every single week.
Mm-hmm.
You get your name in the credits of videos and podcasts. You also get a shout out like we're doing with Kelly Hill here.
And also, we're going to be, for the YouTube members, we're going to be uploading our movie commentaries up there as well.
Well, you already have some, right?
No, we're talking about for YouTube members. I don't think they have.
Right.
If you're a member on YouTube, you should be getting basically all of our exclusive content. We don't have the commentaries up yet, but we will be getting those up soon. We just did one for Godzilla 1998, which is fun.
Yeah. That's the one where
With Matthew Broderick, Hank Azaria.
And they changed the look of Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the action figure of that Godzilla when I was.
And listen, it's only got like 20 to 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is criminal. The movie is better than that.
Okay. So Rotten Tomatoes is like so up and
Oh,
down as far as
for that movie, there's a lot of public perception of that movie that is wrong. And if you watch the movie with a critical eye, you'll see that it's got it's got some good acting moments. It's got some good storytelling beats, and
right.
honestly, it's got some really great visuals and some of the best visuals of New York.
Don't they hide? I actually haven't seen it. Don't
Mm.
they hide? Or I haven't seen all of it, but don't they hide most of the Godzilla in like darkness and raininess, right?
Well, a lot of what you see of
So you can
Godzilla
hide some of
is
the animation
yeah, a
issues
lot of what
in
you
the
see of him
darkness.
is at night and with the rain. It's raining throughout the entire movie.
Yeah,
It's the
because
most New York thing.
it's easy
And
to
it
disguise bad animation or early
yeah,
animation in darkness and raininess.
and
It's like
rain.
shielding you from the unrealistic look, but it's
Shiny,
effective, right?
shiny, like because those animations are shiny. Um, it when it's raining, they look wet, and so it's easier to make it look better. That's why the T-Rex looks so good when it comes out in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So we talk about it on the commentary. Take a look. We'd really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this. It's probably better I talk about it before Joshua gets here because he
Mm,
might poop his pants. Okay.
okay.
So apparently, which I think he still has his headphones in, so he's probably sitting on the toilet listening to us right now with his
Hmm.
earpods. Apparently, there is a rated R TMNT, The Last Ronin in development.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's as far as we know, because we're
That's about
familiar
it.
with the Last Ronin. It's a story about. Do you know which turtle it was? Was it
The most speculation is that it is
Leonardo,
no,
Donatello,
no,
Michelangelo?
that it's Mikey.
The most unserious one. The most.
Hmm.
All right. Well,
That's the biggest theory is that he being the fun loving kind of turtle. It would be the most heartbreaking if he's the one that loses everybody and
right. And
loses
so
his mind.
that's if you don't know, The Last Ronin is kind of like a comic strip of
Hmm.
all. So Splinter, all of his brothers have died, right?
Yeah,
And there's a turtle that goes on kind of a revenge kick,
yeah.
and they call him the Last
The Last
Ronin.
Ronin.
And so apparently they are doing they're in development for a live action The Last Ronin that's going to be
Hmm.
rated
It's gonna be
R.
awesome.
Because
Um, they have a fan film on YouTube. Look up The Last Ronin. There's a really awesome like short fan thing we talked about a long time ago.
which
But
is the one in the blue? That's Leo,
that's
right?
Leonardo, yeah.
Leo, I feel like could um hold it
Leo was
together.
always like the big brother of the
He's a
turtles.
leader. He's a leader. He could hold it together
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
Um Raphael, even though he's extremely angry, he would be broken.
He's also already kind of unhinged most of
He,
the time.
but I think it would more break him.
Probably.
Um Donnie would, I think, maybe lose his mind.
Maybe.
Um, but I think it's more intriguing that it would be Mikey as the one who would
Look,
lose
as
it
far as
and go on a
intrigue
rampage.
goes, yeah, let me do a quick Google just to make sure this isn't already confirmed. Which turtle is the Last Ronin?
No, there definitely is one that's the last one.
Okay, so a quick Google search does say Michelangelo. The decision to make Michelangelo the last of the surviving turtles was made by Eastman and Waltz. When asked why Michelangelo was chosen, the writers Waltz stated, "The simple answer is that Mikey was the brother we figured nobody would expect."
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the most interesting.
That's
Go
cool.
from fun loving, kind of viewed as like the happy youngest brother, you know what I mean?
Right.
Into this super dark, vengeful turtle. That's really interesting.
And
You know what I mean?
everybody kind of would figure Raphael.
Yeah,
to
because
be
he's
that.
already kind of close to that
But
character naturally.
Mikey's the one that relies, I think, more on his family. He's the one that he's kind of the youngest, the one that is they being with them is the most fun and the happiest that he is.
And in
And
some
to lose
fashion,
them,
his fun-loving, lighthearted side kind of shows that he takes the good things in life, like his family, for granted.
and relies on them.
So it's a huge character arc if he loses all of that.
He relies on their responsibility to be fun loving.
Yeah,
So to lose them, it's a great idea.
it's a great idea. Yeah.
I am a little confused. Why are we talking about The Last Ronin?
There's news. There's news that
Oh, is
they're
this the
in
next
development.
segment?
No, it's just
Oh.
it's just transition. I just wanted to let you guys know. I saw in the dailies and my email subscription news thing about movies. They are in development for a rated R TMNT The Last Ronin live action.
Sick.
All right. So it looks like it'll probably be coming. And hopefully they do good by it and don't give it to like Michael Bay or somebody, right? Give it to someone. Give it to someone like Matt Reeves or Doug Phillips or Denis Villeneuve, which he's already too busy. Don't give it to Denis Villeneuve. Who would be a good director to direct The Last Ronin?
Bradley Cooper.
But he would do right by it, probably. Who do you think, Wyatt?
Definitely not Michael Bay.
Yeah, of course. Definitely not someone like Kirk Cameron. Not Kirk Cameron. I keep saying Kirk Cameron. James Cameron, not James Cameron. Don't give it to Kirk Cameron either, by the way.
Yeah,
Kirk Cameron's a little too he's a little too Christian and patriotic to direct something like this.
I would say, geez, I don't know. This is a tough question. Why are you asking me this?
Because I'm curious. Who would
I don't
be
know.
a good director? Or
Gareth, give it to Gareth.
Okay, all right. Maybe you don't know the director, but name
the
movie.
Director of John Wick.
No.
Give it to the director of John Wick. Because
the fighting would be awesome, but the development would be subpar.
We don't need it's already there. It's already there. So you don't have to.
No.
You don't have to.
No, not true.
It's already, everything is already set up. The brothers are gone. It's about the revenge.
Sure.
It's about the revenge. So you don't have to develop.
You gotta set up something, though.
All right, so Chad Stahelski.
Sure.
How do you say his last name? Chad.
I just think
Stahelski. Stahelski.
We got two other segments. I feel like we should
get off my booty.
Your booty's big today. You're planning for a 3-hour podcast, my guy.
Look, all right, fine.
All right, fine.
So I put in Young David. Apparently, so Angel Studios came out with a series called Young David, right?
Okay.
And so if we look at, they have like it's like a series, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Take a look at this page. It says it was released in 2022, but it also says total goal 6 million, and we're at 1% of that. So I'm confused by this. However, this is also confusing. So at Comic-Con, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I don't know exactly what was said because there's no video of this. There's just a bunch of articles that said they said this without quotes around what they said. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's not like direct quotes. So this might be
misquoted.
This might be, or at least like for the headline, like taking things out of context.
Yeah, misinterpreted.
This also could be like someone was saying a joke. You know what I mean? But we're going to get into the numbers in a second. So everyone's talking about faith-based films. Netflix is doing a show about Moses. Amazon MGM is investing money into faith-based films, and obviously everyone's still buzzing about Sound of Freedom, which was a big deal last year, but it was last year, so we should probably move on. So apparently at Comic-Con, the guys at Angel Studios, the Mormon brothers who started the company, said that they are expecting, again, this is not direct quote, this is what the articles are saying, so it could be misrepresented, are expecting their new David movie to be the highest grossing animated film of all time. All right?
Okay.
Which the highest grossing animated film of all time is The Lion King, the live action animated one, which made 1.7 billion worldwide. All right?
Yeah.
So I also was confused because David, they're saying it's a movie, and Young David is a series that's already been released. So I did some more digging and found out no, they did Young David, but they're also doing a David.
Right.
And this is concept animation. I don't think it's going to look like this. This is actually, they released this a while ago. So this is actually the correct numbers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's actually, is there a better page for this, or is this it? All right, so David feature film hasn't been released yet. It's working on it. Apparently the crowdfunding, because Angel Studios does crowdfunding, has made $54 million. All right?
Man, okay, you sure
So
they
this
didn't?
apparently has beat The Chosen as the highest grossing crowdfunded project, which is a big deal. That's the claims here, okay? And so their goal is 60 million. It is dang close to that, all right?
It's
Okay.
pretty close.
But what's confusing me is they just did an animated series called Young David, and now they're doing a feature film animated called David.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just confused. Maybe they're capitalizing on it.
They probably are. You sure they
but-
didn't? They're not saying like, oh, this movie David is going to be one of Angel Studios' biggest grossing things so far.
No.
Not of all time.
This is not just the only article. There's also ones from Hollywood Reporter. Apparently the quote is David will become the biggest animation in history. All right.
What?
That is
Big
what these
claim.
guys are thinking.
What?
And it's based on the idea of this is a huge crowdfunder, and so we're expecting this to be humongous, right?
Okay.
Well,
So they're saying based on the crowdfunding, they've already seen and what they are probably projecting it to ultimately do, they think this is going to be, again, potentially the highest grossing animated movie of all time. All right. What do you guys think initially? Do you think it can even get close to beating $1.7 billion?
So here's my thing. I wouldn't be surprised if the context looked something more like they were talking about it and said, hey, this could become the highest, this could become the highest grossing animation, right? And as it more of tongue in cheek, if you will.
It's what it seemed like. It seems like something silly to say.
Something that they would say tongue in cheek that they're taking out of context.
Yeah.
Or they might just be really bold.
Or they're confident.
They're real confident.
Or they're confident.
That's what all the articles are suggesting, that like it caused a stir in the audience because this is a really bold thing to say. You know what I mean?
Right. Really, the audience was just like chuckling at the tongue in cheek statement.
I mean, maybe they could get close if, this was a animated movie about David where Val Kilmer plays David and Hans Zimmer does the music, and we create ourselves another, Prince of Egypt situation here. Then maybe.
I will say this: the animation does look beautiful in this. They seem to
pretty
go.
look- It's
It
pretty
looks
looking.
good.
It's really. I mean, it's like. I mean,
Definitely,
look at that.
like that looks really cool.
It's really.
it looks
well done. You know,
way better than Wish. Have you guys seen the animation for
yeah.
Wish?
Wish is a
Yeah,
bit-
Wish
Oh
looks really
my
bad.
gosh.
This looks
Wish-
good.
This looks really good animation, and I do think it will make a lot of money. I just feel it in my stomach that the global appeal for this is a lot of money, but not 1.7 billion worth. You know
I
what
don't
I mean?
think so either.
That's a big number to try to break.
I think
And-
really knowing your audience, the people that are going to enjoy this the
That's
most
cool.
are,
I mean, I'm
you
not mad
know,
at that.
the religious crowd.
Yeah, which
But
it's a big religion.
yeah,
It's
we
There's a
have
a big
reason
part of the
why.
community.
we have come to conclusions that the religious crowd right now they're standing up for themselves.
Mhm.
And
They're helping make money for these kinds of
Yeah.
yeah,
projects.
but if we're being honest, okay. So Sound of Freedom was a big stir because it didn't take a lot of money to make, all right? But it made $250 million. So the return was huge.
Yeah.
But Dune Part 2 like crushes $250 million, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Big
So
blockbuster.
Sound of Freedom was a huge return on investment, but it still doesn't make as much money as some of these Hollywood films. So
I'm gonna kind of stand with the position that this was perhaps a tongue-in-cheek statement that they made that's being misinterpreted. Um,
Mhm.
and if it's not, then look, shoot for the moon.
True for that.
look,
You know,
there's not a problem with trying to make it the best animated film ever and try to become the most high grossing, but
mhm.
it's just that's a really I mean, 1.7 billion, that is flirting with $2 billion.
Yeah.
That is
That
flirting
you
with
can
$2
flirt.
billion
That is
for a
flirting.
movie. That
Um,
is a big deal.
do you think they're doing the thing that we've seen a lot lately with promotional stuff where they say something outrageous and wild to promote their film or they promote their thing to be better? We talked
Just to
about this
get
a couple
buzz,
weeks ago.
make
Yeah,
bring
with
awareness to it, right?
Ryan Garcia, how he's trying to promote his fight, so he was saying some outrageous things. And um, do you think they're doing that, or they're trying to do that at least?
Oh, that absolutely could be a factor.
Yeah.
I will say if you guys watch what like the concept animation they did like well over a year ago, this guy right here
Mm.
or wherever it was, this right here, it does not look nearly as good as what
Mm-mm.
they're
No,
actually
no.
showing right now. So I think the animation boost was a good or the animation revision was a good choice, but this was just a concept. You should actually people should
Well,
watch this demo video that they released.
mhm.
It was back in 2022 they released it. So you should check it out on the Angel Studios YouTube channel. Watch the demo video, and you'll see it actually is very captivating. Like it is very well. It's like obviously it's like a 5-minute scene. Okay,
Mhm.
it is really well done, but the animation is not as visually interesting or like
Polished.
polished
Mhm.
as what we're seeing in new advertisements like what we're seeing here. And obviously they changed the look of like David and everything, but
What would you call this animation style?
a 3D animation
Yeah.
that's reminiscent of Disney and Pixar. That's what I would
Yeah.
say.
It's a 3D
I feel
animation.
like Christians like to use this animation a lot. Like we never see
3D.
like
It's
sketch animation in any projects these days, you know?
well, we
This is more
did.
accessible right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is. That's why they're using it because it's easier. I
Which is
feel.
Yeah.
fine. I mean, it's still really detailed. It's still done well, but and it's also familiar. So we've seen animations like from Disney and Pixar do really well with this style. So you keep the same format. I mean, this is like what
Mhm.
Tangled did. It's similar
Yeah.
to Tangled or Frozen. You know what I mean? So, um, that's just an interesting piece. Again, it's a lot of money raised. $54 million.
Yeah.
Maybe they're
A lot of
you
money
know,
raised.
we've talked about how like only 3% of your audience that is actually supporting you is your viewers, or 3% of your viewers is your audience.
On YouTube, it's like 1%.
Well, if we're going by those numbers though, $54 million worth is only 1%.
Well, it was
Then
given by $54 million was given by 12,000 people, right? So
Mhm.
there's a good handful of that 12,000 people that donated a large chunk of money. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
There's like probably 10 to 20 people in this 12,000 that donated upwards of a couple $100,000 to this project. So again, it doesn't break that down for you, but you can guess that, because if you have 12,000 people raise $54 million, I mean, what's the basic math on that? Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me do quick math.
Math is not his tism.
I could do math. All right, $54 million divided by 12,000. That's around 4,500 a piece. All right. So I don't think
a
all
lot.
12,000 of those people gave close to $5,000.
Yeah.
There must have been some kind of incentive to donate or something, you know?
Well, there
That's a
is.
lot.
There usually Angel Studios has when you donate, when you pay it forward, especially early investing. They did this with one of their live action projects. You actually become a part of it's like investing. You actually get a little bit of the returns on it. So
that's cool.
I don't know if they do that with all their projects, Angel Studios, but I know they've done that on a couple. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did it here as well.
Dang it, we missed it on the movie that's going to be the highest grossing animated
Film of all time.
film of all time.
That's funny.
We'd be getting some serious kickback.
Serious kickback, man. So that let's just keep an eye on this David movie. And apparently, I guess you can already watch Young David as a series on Angel Studios.
Maybe we'll have to check that out.
Curious for your kids, check it out, I guess. Now let's get to something fun. Okay,
something fun. Oh, this wasn't fun. I thought this was fun.
I've been having fun.
I've been having a blast.
So to get to film adaptations or book adaptations to movies, I went online and I found kind of the consensus of what are considered the best book to movie musical adaptations. Okay.
So we're throwing music. We're throwing another element in there.
Another element.
Movie, music.
Musicals.
It's hard to do a musical in book form.
A lot of these books
I don't know.
aren't musicals, but they turned them into musicals,
true.
right? From movies.
Not true. Okay, wait, no, not true. The Hobbit. How many songs are in the Hobbit book?
But
yeah,
the Hobbit's not a musical.
but they're not breaking out and.
Okay, yes, true, but there's a lot of songs. So what? I guess you got to break it.
Then Bilbo broke out in high step and dance.
High step and dance.
I mean, when the forks break the knives, that's what Bilbo Baggins hates. That's in the book.
Yeah, but it's not a musical number.
Right.
Well,
it's not.
I beg to differ. That's a musical book.
Okay,
It's a musical book. It's not a musical number.
Define what a musical is, then.
A musical is where in the movie they break out into song and sing and dance, and there's lots of people singing and dancing around them. That never happens in books.
All right.
You haven't read enough books.
Okay, so a lot of these films are classics.
Trust me, I've read books.
And as we've established, I don't, because I got the tism. So this is there's a lot of musicals that are just based on Broadway and not based on books. There's also a lot of books to movie musicals that aren't on this list because these are considered online to be the best. So I thought we're going to take what's considered to be the best and let's do a tier ranking for ourselves. Okay. So what we're working with here is The King and I, Sound of Music,
King and I,
Phantom of the Opera, the Julie Andrews Mary Poppins, the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the first one, Fiddler on the Roof, Les Miserables, and Wizard of Oz. Okay?
Okay.
So these are what are considered the best book to movie musical adaptations. All right.
Okay, we definitely have to set the ground rules before we even start or even think about this. Are we talking about the story specifically, or are we talking about how the movie was? Because if we're talking about what we think of the movie specifically, then we're just going to be ranking the movie. We're not going to be ranking the story from book to movie.
I think what we should be ranking is book too musical,
Okay.
Sure.
right?
But I haven't read
Book
these
two- I-
books.
Okay. Then we should be ranking what's maybe the best
What's the best
musical
movie?
story.
Yeah, musical story, all right? Because
Yeah,
you don't
sure.
have to read the books to be like, okay, these are either closely adapted or farly adapted, but they're all
Mhm.
based on books, all right? So let's start. Also, we're going to say this because we've debated this in the past. Say we put something on the S tier. If we
Mhm.
put it behind like the layers to the S tier that we put on the S tier, all right? We still are doing best to worst, okay? Because the further you go down on the S tier is the
Mhm.
worse. It's still an S
Yeah.
tier, but it's
That's
worse
how
than the
these
one in front of it.
these lists
I
always
know,
work.
but we've argued in the past about like, oh, anything on the S tier is just equally good, and that's not
Well,
what we're saying, right?
You know, that's a little disappointing to me, you know, because you guys, when we're ranking 1 out of 10, I'm not allowed to do a 6.5 anymore. I just have to do a 6.
Because we're
But
doing
we're
1
allowed
out
to
of
do
10, and then you do 1 out of 100.
3.
Yeah, but you're putting it in S, but you're clearly saying I
You're
like
saying
this
it's
one a
an
little
S
bit
tier
more.
movie, but we consider
Okay.
this
All
one
right.
better
Well,
than the other.
here let's go with this.
right.
Anything A through F, if it's lower down, then we think it's still A, but it's a little bit. It's not as close to the top of the A
Then
tier.
we'll drop it down.
But we can say anything in S tier is equally S tier.
So just S tier, though.
It's just S
So
tier.
we're changing the rules. Okay.
Yeah, we could change the rules a little bit. Because if
All
we're gonna
right.
vote it lower than S tier, might as well put it in A.
Where do you guys want to start? Which movie here? Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard. Yeah, let's start with the Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz. I'm gonna. I don't mean to show my butt too early, but out of all of these, I already consider this the worst. As far as music goes, as far as story goes, as far as acting goes, it also is one of the oldest, but I do consider this the worst. The
I would
music is
say
not
it
amazing
probably
in this.
is one of the worst, I would agree, but it's definitely doesn't make it a bad film in general. I just think
yeah.
No, none of these
We're
are
not
considered
talking. I don't think
bad
we're talking
films.
about bad films. This is there's 3 on this list that would be my probably least favorite to watch, and this is amongst those 3.
I think we
Okay.
should just straight up give it a C right in the middle, because this is still, you know, a decent film, even though it was a nightmare production that had a horrible,
All right.
a
I'm
lot
putting
of
it at a
horrible
D.
things behind it.
I'm putting it at a D because I'm pretty
No, I said
sure it's
C.
gonna.
I didn't say
I'm pretty
D.
sure
I said
it's gonna
C.
go down. I'm pretty
I
sure
No,
it's
I,
gonna go down.
I think it's.
C.
I think it'll go down too.
It'll
compared
definitely
to
go
some of the
down.
others.
It's probably gonna go down below D, if not
Now,
S.
I haven't seen Les Mis.
Which is wild to me.
It's
When I
pretty
was
insane.
planning this, I was
Yeah.
thinking, was it Wyatt who hasn't seen this yet?
Mhm.
Which is truly incredible because this, I know it's one of the most recent made, but it is really freaking
I will,
good.
however, lean on y'all's opinion.
The performances in Les Mis are top tier. The only critique anybody had with this movie was Russell Crowe's singing voice is a bit interesting. That's the only critique people had with this movie.
From now on.
Stars out in the darkness. There's
Hey, don't be hating on my guy Russell.
it's not a bad singing voice. It's not out of tune. It's just interesting.
He's better at
so-
playing a gladiator than a
crooner. He's not a crooner.
But this movie
Russell
is
Crowe.
truly
a
amazing.
crooner. What?
All right.
What's a crooner?
If I have to explain it.
This movie captures a bit of that old timey magic. You know what I'm saying? While keeping
Which one?
it
Les Mis? Is that
grungy.
what we're going with next?
Yeah. Well, let's rank Les Mis. I am willing to put it on the S tier because it's truly amazing.
No, S tier? No.
It is truly
okay.
amazing.
A or B? A or B?
It is a musical, but I don't think when people think musical, they think Les Mis.
It's exactly the thing I think of first.
Okay,
think
we're
when-
all over the place today.
I definitely put it in A, Put it in A. It's solidly an A.
At least solidly an A. You gotta
Now-
watch this, bro. You
I
have to
hate
get
I
on
will.
doing ranks because
will.
we always disagree, and it always ends up. I just don't like it.
Now, I
Yeah.
will say Les Mis, you're right in saying musical. It is a musical, but it also is an opera because basically the whole thing
Yeah.
is singing, you know?
Mhm.
So there's a level to it. It is a musical. It's what people consider to be one of the best musicals, but it is the only one on this list that is the whole story is being told in basically a song or
Mhm.
a series of songs, right?
Right, like an opera.
Like an opera. So there's that element. It's the only film that has that element to this, right? Then
Fiddler
we
on the
have
Roof.
Well, what's
Fiddler
the
on the
difference
Roof.
between an opera and a music video?
Music
Well,
video?
a music video is usually like a 3 to 4 minute production where there's like a video that goes
Don't
along with
explain
the
this
singing.
to him.
Wait, no. We're talking about a visual story that's only being told by music, not any like word.
It's because
Oh.
it's a play as well.
It's a song. Yeah, okay.
It's like a story. It's a story with music and song, and sometimes you're acting and sometimes you're singing the acting.
Exactly.
But music videos are still telling a story nowadays.
Look, so what is that? So The Greatest Show, right? Is that what it's called? The Greatest,
Greatest Showman?
Greatest Showman.
Showman.
Showman?
Yes.
No. The Greatest Showman. Okay.
I'm
Freaking Hugh Jackman was good in that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's iconic in Les Mis. All right.
Yeah, pretty legendary.
Legendary in Les Mis.
Sure.
Fiddler on the Roof. This is a good one.
It's
Fiddler.
look, okay.
I
Fiddler
mean-
on the Roof is a good movie.
It's
But
it's
Boy, is it a heavy one.
I mean,
So is Les Mis. It's these are all heavy. Like there's parts of Sound of Music that are heavy. You know.
if
This
it was definitely a win for the Jews.
No, by definition, it was a loss. But the
Well,
story's good.
the story in general, though.
yeah, but this one's when I think of this one, I definitely think more of the story and less of the music.
For real.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Every time
But
I
it's
think of this,
a
I think,
strong musical, though.
if I was a rich man.
Yeah, because
That's a song. And I say L'chaim all the time because of this movie.
yeah, you do. So what do you want to put it at? Are we talking A,
Let's
B,
just
or
leave
S?
it there, right in the middle of B. Right in the middle.
B is pretty good.
Yeah, in the middle of B.
This one doesn't have as many tunes that people can really sing along with.
All right. Well, okay. So Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. You could sing along with these songs.
You definitely can, and everybody knows the Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
By the way,
It's creepy, though.
Oz just casted Peter. They just got news that Peter Dinklage was casted, and I was like, I wonder what he's playing.
Probably
for Wicked,
short
right?
guy.
Probably an Oompa Loompa.
Wait, Oz?
No, wait, no. I'm thinking wrong. Yeah, Oz. What the who are the short people in
The Munchkins.
The Munchkins? Yeah,
He's
Peter
the
Dinklage is
king
going to
of
be a
Munchkin
Munchkin.
land.
No, not for Oz. For Wicked. So
For the
Peter
Broadway
Dinklage-
play.
Dinklage
They've
already sees
filmed the
himself
Wicked
as
movie.
for the movie.
He's
Dinklage
in-
already sees himself
he's
as
in
the
it?
king of the Munchkins in real
I
life.
just got news in my email.
No, it's going to be the king of the Munchkins.
I just got news yesterday in my emails that Peter Dinklage was casted for Wicked, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's going to be playing a Munchkin.
Oh, this is not news, really. You personally just found this out.
No, it is news in the subscription email list I get. It is news this week.
Let's
that Peter
move on,
Dinklage
because
was
this
casted for
is
Wicked.
nonsense here.
Imagine if all the little people in the world just decided to be like, we're Munchkins now. Like, call us Munchkins.
Well, we're
They
not
can't
allowed to say
decide
the
on a
M
name,
word
so
anymore.
We can't.
Midgets? Yeah, I don't know.
We're not supposed to.
I feel like Munchkin would.
Yeah, no, look, the little people can't decide on a name. And honestly, little people is not going to cut it. So you're going to have to figure out
It doesn't
something.
roll off the tongue.
Look,
Like midget or
Munchkin do.
Munchkin really works. The Munchkin.
I was happy with
It sounds
Dwarf. Dude.
delicious. I just like that. Sounds like a
I
good
was
food.
happy with Dwarf, but apparently they don't want to be called dwarves. I don't know.
Let's move on from this before
Yeah,
we
I
get in
guess
trouble.
it
Where we
seems
put-
like a separate species.
All right.
That's not what you want.
Where are we
dwarves
putting
and
Willy
fantasy are
Wonka?
separate. Willy Wonka is.
Gene Wilder really performed in this movie.
Mhm.
And I really want to see Jeremy Allen White play a Gene Wilder Willy Wonka. I don't know why.
Because he looks like him.
Put it in B tier. It's because it's good. But it's not like.
Behind Fiddler the Roof?
I'd rather watch Willy Wonka than Fiddler on the Roof.
Opposite.
No,
Opposite?
opposite.
I'd
I'd rather
watch-
sit down and watch Willy Wonka. If it's like, which of these movies would you rather watch? Fiddler on the Roof or Willy Wonka? I'd be like, dude, Willy Wonka.
You know, I'm
That's
agree with
crazy,
Wyatt. Fiddler's way too long, and you get halfway through and then you're done. You're like, I've watched enough Jews today.
Josh is the one that's going to get us in trouble.
I am so happy to watch Fiddler on the Roof, but if you guys both feel that way, I'll
I mean,
No.
anytime I think about watching it, I'm like,
Mary
maybe some other
Poppins.
time.
We
Step
just
in
watched
Dawn.
it.
This has got to be S tier, right?
I feel that.
I would say it's on the
This
A
has
tier.
got to be, but this is like the most musical of musicals.
And this is also brilliantly acted. Can be for kids and adults, right?
Sure.
Mary
We-
Poppins is a beautiful story.
We just watched it,
We
and I
just
was
watched it.
entertained the whole way through.
Sure.
I mean,
I think it's
left
S tier.
halfway through, but
I think it's S tier.
it's a beautiful movie.
Phantom of the Opera. Wyatt,
Okay.
I know this is one of your favorites.
I know you guys are going to put this higher on the list than it should be because of your nostalgia for it. We talked about this at length yesterday. The Godzilla movie that we watched, the 1980 Godzilla movie with Matthew Broderick, is a
98.
good movie, and I'm not downplaying it. But it's better in Wyatt's mind because he has nostalgia for it.
Could I
This
speak
Phantom of the
before,
Opera
could I
is
speak
going
before
to-
you speak for me?
No.
I was going to say,
No.
as a musical, this one goes on D tier
Okay.
with Wizard of Oz.
For real? Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Jeez.
Okay. I was you
But
definitely
hold on.
surprised.
I don't agree with that. I
Oh.
think it's C tier.
I think this has some of the
I'll
just
go with C.
some of the best music in a movie. It's really, really beautiful. But as a musical, it's definitely more of an opera.
I think it's C tier. I think it's better than D,
I think
which
it's
is
C tier
surprising.
also. I would agree with the C tier.
It's a great
You're getting hung up
musical-
on the name.
No, well, it's a great musical movie. It's not as much of a musical as some of these others.
I think it's really well done.
It's awesome. It's a wonderful movie to watch.
All right, let's put it at C.
Okay.
All right,
good.
Sound of Music. First off, when you just think about, all right,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna throw The King and I into this as well. When you just think about the amount of effort for production for
Mhm.
back in the day,
Yeah.
how long these movies are, how many characters they're developing, how much story they're telling, how big scale these productions are, how much money it must have cost to make all these movies.
Yeah.
The King and I and Sound of Music, as far as production and depth and hard work goes, outshines all of these movies.
I would say Sound of Music is good because I can remember I can't remember the lyrics to every song, but I can remember
You are 16.
I mean,
I can remember
what's
that
a
one,
flippity gibbet? What's a flippity gibbet? Nobody knows, but
a
we
deer.
say it. We say it every time.
Edelweiss. There's
what
a
are you
lot
talking
of
about
good songs. in
flippity
this.
gibbets for.
A flibbity
It's in the
gibbet,
movie.
a willow coping, a clown, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody knows what a flippity gibbet is, but we sing it every time.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. How can you solve a problem like Maria? That's the problem there,
Mhm.
right?
We've pondered that at length.
Yeah, for some reason, Marias are problems out there. So Sound of Music, I gotta say, it's an S tier,
It's on the S tier.
and I think it's better than
rough
Mary
line?
Poppins.
I think it's better than Mary Poppins. Also, I would
It's
agree.
probably better than Mary Poppins.
But
regardless of maybe some of the things that were happening on set.
Mary
Wait,
Poppins?
what was happening on
Happened on
Mary
Mary
Poppins?
Uh,
Sound of music.
Sound of Music. Yeah, the guy that played Captain Von Trapp was in an intimate relation with the young woman who played the oldest daughter.
For real?
The 16
Ooh,
going on 17 girl.
Hmm.
didn't
That's a
know.
big age gap.
Yeah, it was weird.
I hope she wasn't
She
actually
wasn't
16.
under 17, under 18 though. She was.
I don't know the actual details of the whole thing, so
Didn't know.
don't
Didn't know.
quote me.
He's out here spreading rumors
So-
about people.
No. There was a relationship between the two of them.
So what you're saying is she wasn't his dad. She was daddy.
Yeah, he was Daddy Von Trapp.
All right, The King and I. All right, I will say this. I already said huge effort. Very fascinating story.
Yeah.
Very well told story, especially for back in the day.
What?
But
How do you feel about the King and I these days? I haven't seen it in a minute.
Is the story as engaging and interesting as, say, Les Mis or Fiddler on the Roof? You know what I mean?
You know, I've always, this is kind of a little bit side, but I've always respected the King and I because it wasn't a love story. There was no love between, well, there was, it's a friendship love, but between the school teacher, the main lady, and the emperor, they've kind of found a mutual agreement and became friends, but it wasn't like a romance where everything is romance, you know?
Sort of. I here's the thing. I don't think it's, as far as a story and a musical, as far as quality of music and intrigue of story, I don't think it's better than Les Mis, Mary Poppins, or Sound of Music.
No, I would definitely agree.
But I do think as far as effort goes for the movie itself and the hard work that went into it and the crazy production they had from back in the day, it's on par with Sound of Music, but I don't think it's a better story than these, right?
So I'm fine leaving it in A tier. I would agree with what you said. I think as a musical, it's behind Fiddler on the Roof in B tier. But as a production, how much effort, I think it would be on A tier.
Gosh, they went into so much with The King and I. If you want your mind blown for like back in the day production, go check out The King and I. You're gonna be like, because especially if you watched it when you were young, it's kind of forgettable, right? But this was back in the day when they were doing like Ben-Hur, they were doing the 10 Commandments. They were doing early before they did Sound of Music, So this was high production value and very long movie,
Yeah.
I feel like though, the guy who played the king,
Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner.
It wouldn't work today.
Maybe not great casting.
He wasn't Asian.
Yeah. Yul Brynner's white. At least I think so. He might be of.
He's not Asian. I'll tell you that.
Okay. So his name is Yuliy Borisovich.
Uh-oh.
That sounds Russian to me.
So very Russian. But the thing about a lot of the Russians and the way that he looks is there was a lot of Asian influences on their history, which gives them a lot of the more Eastern Russian people an Asian look, sort of like Mongolian or Japanese.
Yeah.
And so I guess it works enough.
Look, if you're not trying to bring in social commentary into it, you can overlook that and just say, look,
if you look at him, if you look at pictures of him, he has a sort of Asian look about him, even though he is Russian.
Yeah, I always thought he kind of was like half or something, or like
I thought he was of Asian descent as.
I mean, he's better than John Wayne playing.
But when I saw him in Westworld, I was like, that dude's white.
So I've never seen Westworld, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So are we are we okay with this list right here?
It's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
so
Ridiculous.
to
Julie Andrews just, owning the top of the S tier list.
Okay, so in S tier we got Sound of Music and Mary Poppins,
Mhm.
2 top tier most memorable Julie Andrews movies. In A tier you have Les Mis and The King and I.
Yeah.
Wyatt,
Mhm.
freaking watch Les Mis.
Okay.
B tier, we got Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder, and we got Fiddler on the Roof. All
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
In C tier, we have Phantom of the Opera, and in D tier, we have Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you guys were to throw one more musical in here, it doesn't have to be based on a book, and
There's
throw it
then
on
that
any
pool is
tier.
too big. That pool is
No,
too
no, no.
big.
Just pick a musical that you'd like to see on this list.
The Newsies. I've always loved the Newsies.
The Newsies is a good one.
I place the Newsies as a solid A/B tier.
Yeah, same.
Either
Yeah, it's a good
Newsies
one.
or Hello Dolly. I've got man, even Singing in the Rain. I'll throw that in there.
There's
these
far
three
too many musicals that are not
are
based on books.
cheap.
Um,
Yeah.
Do
I
have
don't
to
even know.
apologize
I don't.
for
I
how
love
much
me
like
some Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah. You talk about problematic.
Yeah. It's a
You
very
guys do
white
like it
movie.
a little too much. The Go Force like that way too much.
It's a
love
good
it.
time, I gotta say. All right, so this is the list, and with that, I think we'll end it.
Just a long pause. And with that,